Welcome to our Crucifixion live stream. Glad to have you beautiful people with us as we begin this glorious week in September. It is on this day, the feast of the Nativity of the Theotokos. So to all of our Orthodox Christians, particularly our ladies who carry the name Mary or any diminutive thereof, blessed feast day to you. Father Chris is here. Deacon Greg is here. How you doing?
Hello.
What's happening?
Living the dream. Flying high. Living excited. I don't even know what any of those words
You know
mean.
what? We're joyous in here because
We are.
we were talking about it last week. Forgive the boasting, but we had, I thought, a marvelous week here in our parish that we serve. We had a lot of interpersonal victories, just like the staff working through things, which I thought was fabulous, getting tighter, really clicking, grooving. And it's a benefit for our community that we serve. Thanks be to God. We also had, for us in our parish, it was the kickoff of our fall season. So that means that all of our classes, our studies are back. So our teens last week had their Bible study. The young professional group had their Bible study. But our education night also began with, under your aegis, the class for our catechumens, which is those who are, seeking to become Orthodox Christians. And there's like 40 people in that class. I mean, like crazy. That was awesome.
It was nuts. It was super packed, and it was a lot of fun. There were some good questions, some good discussion. It was nice times.
Yeah. The final culminating class of the week, whatever, was our Winning the War Within. So, that was great, I thought.
That was fantastic. The thing that you were doing in there and the exercise that you were going with the eulogy, I know you had been hyping it up and talking a lot about like, hey, we're gonna write a eulogy. We're gonna write a eulogy. I was like, all right, we're gonna write a eulogy. And then I watched it unfold, and it was like a blossoming rose on time-lapse video. It was beautiful, and I couldn't look away. And I'm sounding like I'm being sarcastic, but it really was like just this magnificent thing. It was awesome to see how into it everyone was getting, how, like they really were excited about this idea of figuring out where they want their life to go. It was reminiscent for me of the T.S. Eliot's Four Quartets. I don't know how familiar you are with them. I was not familiar with them at all, but when I was doing my doctoral work, I had a British professor who said, it's like in the Four Quartets. And I was like, I don't know what those words mean, but it was a lot of fun. There's an idea in there that, the end is my beginning. Or my end is my beginning. And it really was a way to refocus what I was working on, that we need to start with this end in mind. And the way that you talked about the writing our eulogy really was, it was great.
Thanks. I appreciate that. It was an interesting exercise, and a lot of people were uncomfortable with it, which I thought was great.
Yeah.
So just to give our people the context, like we have on our stuff that's out there already, the 6-part battle plan, but we're kind of running a similar track here with, our Bible study group that we're calling Winning the War Within. And, the idea is that it's this battle, right, between two competing voices in our head. The war is in here, right? I mean, the war that we're waging is in here. And it's, on one hand, you have, this corporate-backed, marketing stuff that's pushing I, self, ego, comfort, ease, all that stuff. And we know that hasn't led really anywhere good. And, the competing voice, if you will, I hate to say it like that, but is Jesus Christ our Lord, right? I mean, in other words, hey, guys, take the cross and follow me. Be crucifixial. And as we try to work our way through that, it was, you begin with the end. I was trying to figure out, like, all right, in my life, I want to walk this step and this step and this step. But I started like, it could have gone any direction, but it had no focus. And then I was reading Covey's 7 Habits again recently, and it hit me. I mean, I stole it right from him. It's not like there's no, hiding where it came from. In his second habit, he's talking about begin with the end in mind. That's the habit in his book. And he starts the chapter with, imagine you're at a funeral and you go up to the box and you look in, and it's you. And so, his point was live your life in such a way that they have to speak about you in that fashion. And I was kind of giggling because as a preacher and a pastor, when someone dies, they're at my mercy in their eulogy, right? Like they have no control over what I'm going to say about them. And, I mean, I know they're dead and they probably don't even care, but the idea that I wanted to impart was, unless you live your life in such a way that you force me as the homilist at your funeral to speak in such a manner, that's a powerful life lived, right? So in other words, hopefully, you design, your life in such a way that that's a good thing. So we did the exercise with everyone. Hey, tell me what you want me to say at your funeral, right? Yeah. Write it out. I mean, hopefully you live 100 years, right? But if you write that out, then all of a sudden you know a target, a destination where you're going, and then you can start to back in the plan. And that's what we're going to continue to do with them, in our studies here. Anyways, that's what it's all. That was kind of the context of what we were doing.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. We talked a little bit about that last week in our live stream, writing your eulogy and then drawing that plan. We looked at the two different Enochs as the two different ways to go.
Right.
From the book of Genesis, make sure you get on our Genesis reading challenge. And keep rolling with that stuff, because that is kind of, to me, where we see a lot of the meat and potatoes, where we see really the rubber hitting the road. And I know you're going to talk a lot about, drawing out a plan. Can you unpack a little bit more about, how does writing your eulogy then feed into drawing out a plan?
Okay. Well, here's where I'm at thus far to answer that question. I may be wrong or continue to grow, but here I am. I often, throughout the course of my life, and many of us have tried to reach goals ahead of me.
Yeah.
Which you should. I mean, goals are obviously not behind you. They're ahead of you. But I was just chasing things willy-nilly, if I can say it like that. Like, doing good things, but didn't have an overarching plan. And I'm not good at planning like that kind of stuff. So when I did this thing with Covey's eulogy, I wrote my own eulogy, and it was kind of weird, kind of creepy a little bit. I would encourage all of our people to try. Give it a shot. It's an interesting exercise. But then I realized what my end destination was. And instead of trying to go from here to there, I went from there backwards to here. Does that make sense? So in drawing the plan, I reverse engineered it, and it's still not done my personal. But I found it to be like, it's funny because it seems illogical, but it's logical. Like this is my destination. All right. So let's just say, I want to achieve a specific goal. My destination is, a goal being a life lived. Well, what do I have to do? Well, I have to do this. That's the last thing before I get there. All right. Well, how do I get to that? Well, maybe, the year before I did this, and 10 years before I did that. And as I started to back up, it got all the way to daily to-do lists. Stupid analogy, but I'll give it to you. Right. So one of my life goals, I'd love to be able to just freely give away $1 million to those in need, to charities, to poor, just to give away $1 million. I don't have $1 million to give away. So, all right. So I need $1 million to give it away. Well, how do I do that? I have to have $1 million. How do I get $1 million? I've got to have long-term, I'm making this up, but long-term success in the stock market. So how do I do that? Well, I have to study this and look at this and look at these companies, which comes all the way back to this moment where today I need to call my stockbroker and give him $1 and say, put it in this stock with the idea of da-da-da. You know what I mean? So in other words, that target, that huge transformative goal, I backed into it, which got me to 1 or 2 actions today. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Hey, Warrior Saints. Thank you so much for being with us. If you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, and share. It helps us get the word out there. And if you want more, visit us at warriorsaints.org and subscribe to Understanding the Bible. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon.